Good morning to you, brothers and sisters, Christian friends, to you, Trinity. I welcome each of you to the worship service this morning as we are celebrating Mother's Day. As we do on each occasion, I want to take just a moment and encourage us to, those of you who have not received your vaccine inoculations, that you would take the opportunity and do so. Keep in mind, the sooner we do that, that is, we take the vaccine or get the vaccine if we are able to. Some people may not be able to, but if you can, I want to strongly encourage you to go forward and get vaccinated so that you can start interacting with family members and friends to whatever degree of normalcy that we can. It's very, very important that more of us do what we need to do in order to get a handle over this plague pandemic that we're facing, CV-19. Today is Mother's Day, and we want to take just a few moments and just talk about the importance of the relationship that we have with Mom. This message is going to be a bit personal. It's kind of hard to talk about Mom without being personal. So I'm going to ask that you would, as I reflect, that you will reflect, and that we each think about our mothers, whether they're present or whether they've gone on, and we celebrate their memories. Let's take this moment, this day, which is the Lord's Day, but in the midst of celebrating Him, we celebrate moms who taught us how to love Christ and the importance of loving one another, and not to mention loving ourselves as we should. I'm going to ask that you would look with me from the book of Proverbs, which is a traditional and familiar scripture during this time of year. And as I talk about moms, I'm also going to be talking about family relationships. I'm going to be talking about fathers as well. And more importantly, we want to focus on our relationship with Mom. Let's look at Proverbs chapter 31, Proverbs 31, and beginning with verse 10, and I'm going to read through verse 31. Now, you'll be patient with me, I pray, as once I read this scripture, I'm going to kind of venture off into different areas, not following any particular outline form today, but just simply talking to us about the relationship Mom and how important mothers are, and doing it in a rather personal, reflective manner. Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. The heart of her husband doeth safely trust in her, so that he shall not have no need for spoil. She shall do him good and not evil all the days of her life. She seeketh wool and flax, and worketh willingly with her hands. She is like the merchant's ship. She bringeth her food from afar. She rises also while it is yet night, and giveth meat to her household, and a potion to her maidens. She considereth the field and buyeth it. With the fruit of her hand she planteth the vineyard. She girdeth her loins with strength, and strengthens her arms. She perceives her merchandise is good, that her merchandise is good. Her candle goeth not out by night. She layeth her hand to the spindle, and with her hand she holds the distaff. She stretches out her hands to the poor, yea, she reaches forth her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of the snow, for her household are clothed with scarlet. She maketh herself coverings of tapestry. Her clothing is silk and purple. Her husband is known in the gates, when he sitteth among the elders of the land. She maketh fine linen, and selleth it, and delivereth girdles unto the merchants. Strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come. She opened her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness. She looketh well to the ways of her household, and eateth not the bread of idleness. Her children arise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. Many daughters have done virtuously, but thou excels them all. Favor is deceitful, beauty is vain, but a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised. Give her of the fruits of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates. And I want to talk to you this morning on this subject, the model mother woman. And again, that's from Proverbs 31, verse 10 through verse 31. I want you to understand something that is pretty clear to me. You know, we look at this pandemic, and we're certainly grieved by some of the experiences that we've had. For over a year now, we have been shut down, basically, have not been able to go out and interact and do the things that prior to CV-19 we were doing. We were going about normal activities day to day, year to year, week to week, month to month, moment by moment. And suddenly we were smitten by this pandemic that crushed us and caused our lives to be turned upside down. And many lives, many loved ones, many friends have gone on. Persons that I know, persons that you know, we were touched by it. We were devastated by it. We were crushed by it. But in the midst of all of that suffering, in the midst of all of the loss, there's a silver lining. There is some good, if you please, that has come out of this. And that good that I see is the relationship that in many cases have been mended back together, that was broken for years. Families have been pulling apart, children going one way, mothers going one way, fathers going one way. Everybody was doing their own thing, their own way, in their own time. And suddenly, our lives were turned upside down. And we had to start to refocus and rethink. And out of all of the bad things that have happened with this virus, the one thing that I see from where I sit and observe is that families that were ripped apart by economics and greed and the need simply to go out and work, in so many instances, were brought back together uniquely as a byproduct of the pandemic, the plague that was upon us. More families are spending time together now than in years. Family members are getting to know one another again. Husbands are getting to know their wives. Wives are getting to know their husbands. Husbands and wives are reestablishing relationships with their children. And many moms right now are not able to go back to work because they're having to stay home with their children. And even though that is not good, it is not altogether bad. Because what that does is it gives an opportunity for us to get to know one another in the family in a way that we have not been. God has a way of bringing us into focus with what the priorities ought to be and the necessity of being family. And right now, over the past year or so, we have rediscovered, we have relearned, we are learning the importance of relationships. And the thing that has driven that is the fact that we have been so devastated by loss and sufferings of those that we love. I'm thinking about some things right now. I'm thinking about how important and how significant. Mothers, I don't want you to underestimate. Wives, I don't want you to underestimate. Women, I don't want you to underestimate how valuable, how significant, how vital, how important you are in the grand scheme of things. We would be lost without you. Trust me, we could not make it without the strength of women in our society and in the world. Don't ever underestimate your value and your worth. You are worth far more than what you realize you are. We, mankind, the world, would be lost without the power and the influence of women, of mothers, of wives. Don't you underestimate your role. Don't sell yourself short. You are most important in this grand scheme.